Your life is not random. It looks the way it does because of what you allow to remain. Not what you want, not what you hope for, but what you tolerate. Most people misunderstand this. They think tolerance is patience. They think it's kindness. They think it's maturity. It's not. Tolerance is permission that never needed words. Every situation that stays longer than it should stays because it was allowed to. That doesn't mean you chose it intentionally. It means you didn't remove it decisively. Life watches what you ignore. It notices what you excuse. It studies what you repeatedly forgive without change. And then it adjusts accordingly. This is why patterns repeat. The same type of relationship, the same frustrations at work, the same exhaustion that never fully leaves. Different faces, different locations, same outcome. People call this bad luck. They say, "This always happens to me." They blame timing. They blame circumstances. But patterns don't repeat by accident. They repeat because the conditions for them still exist. What you tolerate becomes familiar. What's familiar stops feeling urgent. What stops feeling urgent stops being challenged. That's how temporary situations become permanent states. You get used to disrespect, used to disorder, used to misalignment. Not because you like it, but because confronting it feels heavier than living with it. This is where the mirror appears. Your life reflects your thresholds. How much chaos you allow, how much discomfort you ignore, how much self-betrayal you justify. Life doesn't respond to what you say you deserve. It responds to what you accept. You can want better and still tolerate worse. That contradiction is where most people get stuck. They dream loudly. They complain privately. They tolerate quietly. And nothing changes. Because change begins where tolerance ends. But most people never look there. They look for motivation. They look for confidence. They look for timing. They don't look at their boundaries. Because boundaries require confrontation, and confrontation risks discomfort. So instead, they adjust internally. They lower expectations. They numb frustration. They normalize dissatisfaction until the abnormal feels normal. This is how lives shrink without collapsing. Nothing explodes, nothing breaks dramatically. Things just slowly drift out of alignment. And the mirror keeps reflecting. Not your intentions, not your potential, your tolerances. And until those change, the reflection won't either. Tolerance is rarely dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like postponement. I'll deal with it later. It's not worth the conflict. It's fine for now. That's how tolerance disguises itself, not as surrender, but as delay. Every time you postpone confrontation, you train the situation to stay. Tolerance is not patience. Patience has direction. Tolerance has inertia. Patience waits for growth. Tolerance waits for relief. Relief from discomfort. Relief from tension. Relief from having to draw a line. That relief is short-term, because whatever you tolerate today returns tomorrow with more confidence. Disrespect becomes tone. Disorder becomes routine. Misalignment becomes expectation. Life reads tolerance as consent, not emotional consent, structural consent. You didn't say yes, you just never said no. And systems don't need permission spoken aloud. They only need resistance to disappear. This is how small compromises compound. You stay quiet once, then again, Then it becomes your role. You become the person who adapts, the one who understands, the one who absorbs friction, until absorbing becomes identity. Tolerance reshapes standards quietly. What once bothered you starts feeling normal. What once felt wrong starts feeling familiar, and familiar feels safe, even when it's draining you. This is why tolerance is dangerous, not because it hurts immediately, but because it erodes slowly. You don't notice the loss of energy. You don't notice the loss of clarity. You don't notice the loss of self-respect until you're exhausted and can't explain why. You say you're tired of circumstances, tired of people, tired of patterns. But what you're really tired of is carrying what you never set down. Tolerance is weight, weight added in small amounts, weight never recalculated. And the longer it stays unchallenged, the heavier it becomes. Nothing in your life stays neutral. It either strengthens you or drains you. Tolerance decides which, and until that's understood, the mirror keeps forming the same image. If this message resonates with you, like and subscribe for more content like this. This channel is built for people who are done waiting. Every act of tolerance teaches someone something. Sometimes it teaches others how to treat you. Sometimes it teaches you how little you're willing to protect yourself. This is where tolerance turns inward, not into peace, into self-betrayal. You stay silent to keep harmony. You agree to avoid tension. You adapt to avoid conflict. And slowly, your needs become optional. This is how people lose themselves quietly, not through trauma, through accommodation, through choosing comfort over honesty, again and again. Self-betrayal doesn't feel like a collapse. It feels like maturity, like flexibility, like being easy to work with. But internally, something fractures. Your instincts dull, your standards blur, your voice softens. You start second-guessing reactions that were once clear. You ask, am I overreacting? You ask, is it really that bad? That question is the warning sign. Because when disrespect becomes negotiable, identity becomes unstable. Others adjust faster than you think. They learn how far they can go, how late they can push, how little they can give. Not because they're malicious, because the boundary never appeared. People don't cross lines they can see. They only drift past the ones that were never drawn. And every time you let it pass, your internal standard lowers, not consciously, subtly. You begin living slightly off-center. You still function, you still perform, you still show up, but not fully as yourself. There's a quiet resentment that builds here, not always toward others, toward yourself. Because deep down, you know you participated. You know you saw it early. You know you felt it then. You know you chose silence anyway. That knowledge doesn't disappear. It settles. And over time, it hardens into fatigue. You feel drained by people who never asked for your energy. You feel stuck in situations you never agreed to long-term. But you did agree, not out loud, through tolerance. This is why self-respect erodes quietly. No one takes it from you. It's surrendered in small, reasonable moments. And the cost isn't immediate. It's cumulative. You don't lose yourself all at once. You misplace yourself, one compromise at a time. There is a price for everything you tolerate. It just isn't billed immediately. The cost shows up quietly, in your energy, in your focus, in your sense of direction. When you tolerate misalignment, your attention fractures. You spend mental effort managing situations that shouldn't need managing. You anticipate reactions, you rehearse conversations, you prepare for resistance that never should have existed. That effort adds up. This is why tolerated situations feel heavier over time, not because they got worse, but because they're pulling from resources you were meant to use elsewhere. Energy leaks first. You wake up tired without knowing why. You feel resistance toward things you once enjoyed. You procrastinate, not from laziness, but from depletion. Then momentum slows, not dramatically, gradually. You stop initiating change. You stop refining standards. You stop imagining better outcomes. Because imagination requires space, and tolerance crowds it out. This is how stagnation forms, not from lack of ability, not from lack of opportunity, but from carrying what doesn't belong. Tolerated dysfunction becomes background noise. You don't react to it anymore. You don't question it. You just work around it. Working around something feels productive, but it's a trap. Every workaround reinforces the original problem. It signals, this is acceptable. This can stay. This doesn't need correction. Over time, resentment builds here. Not explosive resentment, quiet resentment. You feel it when patience thins, when empathy dries up, when irritation appears faster than it should. That resentment isn't directed cleanly. It spills onto unrelated people, onto small inconveniences, onto yourself, because you're carrying frustration that never found a boundary. This is why tolerated situations poison unrelated areas of life. One unresolved thing spreads tension everywhere. People think they're tired of work. They're tired of what they allow at work. They think they're tired of relationships. They're tired of the standards they stopped enforcing. Tolerance doesn't just affect one area. It lowers the baseline everywhere. Eventually, something strange happens. You stop believing change is possible, not consciously, subconsciously. You adjust expectations downward. You settle internally. You tell yourself, this is just how it is. That belief is the final consequence. Because once tolerance becomes identity, movement stops. You don't feel stuck because you are incapable. You feel stuck because your environment reflects limits you never challenged. And nothing changes at this stage through motivation, not through confidence, not through hope. It changes only when tolerance does. Because until then, life keeps responding to the conditions you allow to exist. Change doesn't begin with action. It begins with refusal. Not dramatic refusal, not loud refusal, quiet refusal. The moment you decide something no longer gets access to you. Most people try to change their lives without changing their tolerances. They add habits, they seek motivation, they chase confidence, but they leave the door open to the same conditions. And whatever still has access still has influence. This is the uncomfortable truth. Before your life improves, your environment must lose something. A behavior, a pattern, a dynamic, a version of you that kept absorbing. That loss feels like instability at first, because tolerance felt familiar, even when it was draining. When you draw a boundary, there is friction. When you enforce a standard, there is resistance. That discomfort is not a warning, it's a signal. It means something old is being denied space. Most people turn back here. They confuse discomfort with danger. They retreat to what's familiar. They tolerate again, just to feel relief. And the cycle resumes. Stable change requires sitting in that discomfort, not reacting, not explaining, not over-justifying, just holding the line. Boundaries don't need speeches, they need consistency. You don't need to announce standards, you need to live as if they're already real. This is where power returns, not power over others, power over access. Who gets your time? Who gets your energy? What gets repeated? What gets removed? As tolerance decreases, clarity increases. You stop negotiating with what drains you. You stop explaining what you already decided. You stop participating in dynamics that cost too much. And slowly, life adjusts. Not because you demanded more, because you accepted less. Less disrespect, less disorder, less misalignment. What remains feels lighter, cleaner, quieter. Not perfect, but aligned. This is the real shift. Not becoming more confident, becoming less available to what erodes you. If this hit, don't agree with it. Audit what you're tolerating. Choose one thing that no longer gets access. Enforce it quietly, consistently, without explanation. And if you're done living with conditions you never chose, stay here. More clarity is coming. Most people think they're behind. Behind in life, behind in success, behind in progress. They look around and see others moving faster, reaching milestones sooner, arriving where they thought they'd already be. So they conclude something is wrong. I missed my window. I started too late. I'm running out of time. But behind is a misleading word. It suggests a race, a shared timeline, a fixed schedule everyone is supposed to follow. There is no universal clock, no agreed-upon pace, no standard sequence. What you're really feeling isn't lateness, it's exposure. Exposure to comparison, to visibility, to other people's outcomes without seeing their preparation. Social timelines distort reality. You see highlights without context, results without the boring years, arrivals without the build-up. So your own position starts to feel inadequate, not because it is, but because it's quieter. Quiet progress feels slow in a loud world, and when everything around you moves fast, stillness feels like failure. But being behind implies you were ready earlier, and something external delayed you. Most of the time, that isn't true. Most people weren't delayed, they were unprepared. They wanted outcomes before capacity, recognition before competence, speed before structure. And when opportunity didn't arrive, they assumed time betrayed them. Time didn't betray you, time revealed you. It revealed what you hadn't built yet, what you hadn't practiced, what you hadn't stabilized. That's not falling behind, that's being early to desire and late to preparation. Most people never make this distinction. They keep blaming timing, they keep chasing urgency, they keep rushing the next step, all while skipping the work that would actually make them ready. Feeling behind creates panic. Panic creates shortcuts. Shortcuts delay preparation even more. And the cycle repeats. You are not behind. You are standing at the exact moment your preparation has earned. And the only way forward isn't speed, it's readiness. Being behind is a comforting lie, because it shifts blame onto time. If you're behind, then the problem is the clock, your age, your timing, your starting point. That story feels better than the truth. The truth is quieter. You weren't delayed. You weren't unlucky. You weren't skipped. You were unprepared. Preparation isn't desire. Wanting something doesn't make you ready for it. Ambition doesn't equal capacity. Intention doesn't equal skill. Most people confuse clarity with readiness. They know what they want, so they assume they should already have it. But knowing the destination doesn't build the vehicle. Preparation is boring. It's systems. It's repetition. It's skill built quietly with no audience. That's why people skip it. Preparation doesn't reward ego. It doesn't create visible progress early. It just increases tolerance. Tolerance for responsibility. Tolerance for pressure. Tolerance for complexity. When opportunity arrives, it doesn't ask how badly you wanted it. It asks how much you can carry. And when people panic in those moments, freeze, hesitate, self-sabotage, they blame confidence. They blame fear. But fear isn't the problem. Fear just exposes the gap between desire and preparation. Unprepared people rush. They want speed because speed hides weakness. They want shortcuts because shortcuts feel like momentum. But shortcuts delay readiness even more. This is why behind never disappears for people who keep rushing. They keep arriving early to outcomes they're late to prepare for. And every missed opportunity reinforces the same belief. I'm running out of time. Time isn't running out. Capacity just hasn't caught up yet. You don't fix that by moving faster. You fix it by building quietly what timing will eventually demand. You are not behind. You are standing at the edge of what you're finally being asked to prepare for. If you're done living in distraction, like and subscribe. This channel exists to help you protect your attention and build something real. Opportunity doesn't arrive gently. It arrives suddenly. One call, one opening, one moment that demands action. And when it does, there is no time to prepare. That's when the difference shows. Not between talented and untalented, between prepared and exposed. Unprepared people panic when opportunity appears, not because they don't want it, but because they can feel the gap. The gap between what's required and what they can currently sustain. Responsibility feels heavy. Expectations feel overwhelming. Pressure feels personal. So they hesitate, they overthink, they self-sabotage, they find reasons to delay. Later, they say it wasn't the right time. But timing wasn't the issue. Readiness was. Preparation is what allows calm when everything is on the line. It's what turns pressure into familiarity. People who are prepared don't feel fearless. They feel capable. They've rehearsed the weight. They've built tolerance for responsibility long before it arrived. That's why opportunity looks different to them. It doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like a continuation. This is the part no one sees. The quiet years spent building capacity for moments that last minutes. From the outside, it looks like luck. From the inside, it feels earned. Unprepared people chase timing. Prepared people create it. They don't rush toward outcomes. They expand what they can hold. More pressure, more complexity, more responsibility. So when the door opens, they don't freeze. They step forward. And when others watch them move smoothly through moments that cause panic, they assume confidence. They assume talent. But what they're really seeing is preparation revealing itself. You don't rise to the level of opportunity, you fall to the level of your preparation. And preparation is the one thing that makes timing irrelevant.
The solution isn't urgency.
It's preparation. Urgency makes you rush. Preparation makes you ready. Most people chase speed because speed feels like progress. They move faster, consume more, jump sooner. But speed without capacity just leads to collapse. Preparation is slower. It looks unproductive from the outside. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't create visible wins early. That's why it's ignored. No one praises the boring work. No one applauds repetition. No one notices systems being built until the moment arrives that requires them. This is where the shift happens. You stop asking, "Why am I behind?" and start asking, "What am I not ready to handle yet?" That question changes everything. It moves you out of panic and into construction. You stop chasing outcomes and start building capacity, more skill, more structure, more tolerance for responsibility. Preparation isn't about perfection. It's about reducing surprise. It's about knowing you've already carried similar weight. When you prepare properly, timing loses its power over you. Opportunities stop feeling rare. Moments stop feeling overwhelming. Because you're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're becoming capable. And capability attracts timing. This is why people who look late often surge past everyone else. They weren't behind. They were building. Quietly, patiently, without needing proof. If you feel behind, good. That feeling isn't telling you to rush. It's telling you to prepare. Stop comparing timelines. Audit your readiness. Build what you're avoiding. And let time meet you when you're actually ready. Stay disciplined. Preparation always catches up. Anger is obvious. It raises its voice. It tightens the jaw. It announces itself before it acts. That's why people fear it. Anger is visible, predictable, easy to spot from a distance. When someone is angry, you know where they stand. You know what triggered them. You know what they might do next. Anger removes mystery. It burns fast, it surges, it peaks, it collapses. Anger exhausts itself. That's what makes it less dangerous than people think. Anger is reactive. It responds to pressure, to insult, to threat. And because it reacts, it exposes intention. An angry person shows their hand early. They argue, they confront, they lash out. This gives others time. Time to prepare, time to defend, time to step away. Anger warns you. That's its flaw. Anger wants resolution now. It wants release. It wants expression. It wants relief. So it spends energy recklessly. Words spill. Decisions rush. Lines are crossed openly. Anger doesn't calculate. It doesn't wait. It doesn't hold tension for long. This is why anger is easy to manage. You can calm it. You can redirect it. You can let it burn itself out. You can see it coming. People confuse intensity with danger. They assume loud emotions carry the greatest threat. But loud emotions rarely last. They announce themselves too early. Anger shows you exactly where the fire is, and once you see the fire, you know where not to stand. Anger isn't subtle, and subtlety is where real danger begins. Calm is misunderstood. People think calm means peace, that it means acceptance, that it means nothing is happening. That assumption is what makes it dangerous. Calm is not the absence of emotion, it's the presence of control. Anger reacts, calm observes. Observation changes everything. A calm person doesn't rush to speak, they don't defend immediately, they don't correct in the moment. They collect information. They notice patterns, what repeats, what escalates, what's said, and what's avoided. While anger burns energy outward, calm conserves it. Calm holds tension without release. That's the difference. Holding tension requires strength. It means resisting the urge to react for relief. It means allowing discomfort to exist without expression. Most people can't do that, so they mistake restraint for weakness. They assume silence means agreement. They assume stillness means passivity. They assume calm means compliance. It doesn't. Calm is often decision-making in progress. A calm person isn't undecided. They're evaluating. They're measuring consequences. They're weighing leverage. They're choosing timing. Anger acts to feel better. Calm waits to act effectively. Effectiveness is patient. This is why calm unsettles people. You can't predict it. You don't know what it's planning. You don't know what it's willing to tolerate. You don't know where the line actually is. Calm creates uncertainty for everyone else, and uncertainty creates power. A calm presence slows a room down. It forces others to reveal themselves. They talk more, they over-explain, they rush to fill silence. Meanwhile, the calm person learns. They learn who reacts emotionally, who needs validation, who loses control under pressure. This isn't manipulation, it's awareness. And awareness compounds. Calm doesn't announce boundaries, it lets others test them. And when calm finally moves, it doesn't need to explain why. Anger shows its intentions immediately. Calm lets intentions form quietly. And what's formed quietly tends to last. If you're serious about building this mindset, follow and subscribe. Everything here is about discipline, focus, and real progress. This is where calm becomes dangerous. Not because it explodes, but because it waits. Anger wants release. It wants the argument, the confrontation, the immediate outcome. Calm wants leverage, and leverage takes time. A calm person doesn't rush to correct. They don't interrupt. They don't reveal intent. They let situations unfold. They allow others to speak freely, to overextend, to expose patterns. Anger closes options. Calm multiplies them. That's the danger. Calm allows planning, not emotional planning, strategic planning. It considers consequences, it weighs outcomes, it chooses moments that can't be undone. Anger burns bridges loudly. Calm decides whether a bridge is needed at all. This is why calm feels unsettling to others. There's no signal, no warning flare, no emotional noise. Just silence and delay. And delay creates uncertainty. Uncertainty makes people nervous. They start talking more, explaining more, defending themselves against nothing. Calm lets them. While anger exposes its position immediately, calm lets positions form naturally. By the time calm moves, the decision is already complete. There is no debate, no negotiation, no reversal. That's what makes it final. Anger can be talked down. Calm cannot. Anger might forgive. Calm has already decided. This is the difference most people miss. They think calm is kindness. Sometimes it is. Other times, it's the last phase before action. Anger announces change. Calm executes it. And execution is where outcomes are sealed. This is why calm decides outcomes, not because it feels stronger, but because it lasts longer. Anger spends everything at once. Calm saves. Anger reacts to what just happened. Calm prepares for what's coming next. That preparation is invisible, which is why it's underestimated. Calm people aren't passive. They're restrained. They choose when to speak, when to move, when to end something permanently. Anger wants resolution. Calm wants results. And results don't require emotion. They require timing. This is why controlled people shape rooms. They don't dominate conversations. They don't escalate tension. They let others reveal impatience, reactivity, weakness. Then they act once. No warnings, no speeches, no second chances. Anger creates noise and aftermath. Calm creates silence and finality. That silence is what scares people, because once calm moves, there's nothing left to argue. The decision already happened. If you want control, stop feeding anger. Learn to sit in calm without needing release. Learn to wait without losing intention. If this changed how you see power, like the video. Subscribe if you're done reacting and ready to decide deliberately. Calm isn't weakness. It's the final form of control.
Confidence is loud.
Not because it is strong, but because it wants to be seen. It announces itself before it is asked. It speaks early. It speaks often. It fills silence so no one looks too closely. Loud confidence is movement without weight. It gestures. It displays. It performs certainty before certainty exists. In public spaces, this is rewarded. The bold statement, the sharp opinion, the visible self-belief. People don't ask if it's earned. They ask how confidently it was delivered. So confidence learns a dangerous habit. It learns that volume equals value. The louder you are, the more real you seem. The more decisive you sound, the more competent you appear. The faster you speak, the less time anyone has to question you. This is not strength. This is optics. Most people are not confident because they are grounded. They are confident because they are watched. They build a version of themselves designed to survive observation, not reality. They learn which words land, which tones impress, which beliefs sound powerful in a room, and then they repeat them. Confidence becomes a costume, one that only works while the lights are on. That's why it needs noise, because silence removes the audience, and without the audience, the performance collapses. Loud confidence hates stillness. It hates waiting. It hates restraint. Because restraint exposes whether there is anything underneath. So it keeps talking. It explains itself before being challenged. It promises outcomes before doing the work. It declares direction before direction exists. This is why so many confident people panic in quiet moments. When nothing is happening, when no one is watching, when there is no reaction to feed on. In silence, confidence has nothing to bounce off of. No applause, no agreement, no reflection. Only itself. And if it hasn't been built on something real, that silence feels threatening. So confidence raises its voice again, not to lead, but to reassure itself. This is the mistake most people never see. They think confidence creates action, but often action is delayed because confidence is being displayed instead of built. Talking replaces doing. Announcing replaces progress. Certainty replaces patience. And the louder it gets, the weaker it becomes. Because anything that needs to be constantly asserted is not yet stable. Confidence makes noise to be believed. Stability doesn't need to. And that difference is where everything starts to change.
If this message resonates with you,
Like and subscribe for more content like this. This channel is built for people who want control over their focus, not constant noise. Loud confidence comes with a cost. Most people never calculate it, they only feel it. Because the moment confidence depends on being seen, it becomes fragile. You can't rest when you are always being observed. You can't slow down when your image needs momentum. You can't hesitate when hesitation might be mistaken for weakness. So the confident stay active, always moving, always reacting. Not because they are driven, but because stopping would expose them. Loud confidence turns life into a stage. Every room becomes an audition. Every conversation becomes positioning. Every silence feels suspicious. You start managing perception instead of reality. What you say matters more than what you build. How you look matters more than how you live. How certain you sound matters more than whether you are right. That pressure never leaves, because once you establish a version of yourself publicly, you have to protect it privately. And protection is exhausting. The confident can't admit confusion. They can't sit with uncertainty. They can't afford to say, "I don't know yet." Not because they don't feel doubt, but because doubt contradicts the image. So doubt gets buried, ignored, covered with stronger statements. Over time, that buried doubt turns into tension. You see it when confident people over-explain, when they interrupt, when they rush to conclusions. They are not asserting dominance, they are defending it. This is why loud confidence collapses under pressure. When something goes wrong, when progress slows, when results don't arrive on schedule. Because the image can't absorb reality. Reality doesn't care how confident you sounded yesterday. It only responds to what was built quietly. So when reality pushes back, the confident feel exposed. They panic, not externally, internally. They feel the gap between who they appear to be and what they can actually sustain. That gap creates anxiety, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that lives in the chest, the kind that tightens sleep and shortens patience. This is the hidden tax of loud confidence. You are never allowed to be unfinished. You must always know, always decide, always perform certainty, even when certainty would be dishonest. And slowly, confidence turns against you. It no longer protects you, it imprisons you. You start avoiding situations where you might look inexperienced. You delay learning because learning requires humility. You resist feedback because feedback threatens the image. Growth slows, not because you are incapable, but because you are busy maintaining. Maintenance looks productive, but it compounds nothing. This is why so many confident people burn out quietly. They are tired of holding themselves up, tired of being impressive, tired of pretending the foundation is stronger than it is. And the tragedy is this: they don't need more confidence. They need something else entirely, something that doesn't require noise, something that doesn't panic in silence, something that doesn't break when no one is watching. That something is stability, and it behaves very differently.
If you're done living in distraction,
Like and subscribe. This channel exists to help you protect your attention and build something real.
stability does not introduce itself.
It doesn't explain who it is. It doesn't rush to be understood. It doesn't react to being underestimated. Stability is quiet because it doesn't need reinforcement. It already knows what it can hold. Where confidence seeks attention, stability seeks order. Internal order, daily order, mental order. Stability is built in repetition, not dramatic repetition, not visible repetition, the kind no one applauds, the kind that looks boring from the outside, the kind that feels unimpressive in conversation. Stable people do the same things even when no one is watching. They don't rush progress for validation. They don't announce effort to feel real. They don't mistake consistency for stagnation. Stability understands something confidence often ignores. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is structure. In silence, routines solidify. In silence, systems are tested. In silence, weaknesses reveal themselves early, quietly. This is why stable people spend so much time alone with their work, not out of isolation, out of precision. They are not chasing momentum. They are building tolerance. Tolerance for boredom, tolerance for repetition, tolerance for delayed reward. That tolerance becomes strength. Stability does not spike, it accumulates. And because it accumulates, it doesn't panic. When progress slows, stability adjusts. When pressure increases, stability absorbs. When uncertainty appears, stability waits. Waiting is not hesitation. Waiting is confidence without noise. Stable people don't need to prove direction. They've already committed to it internally. They don't pivot for applause. They don't abandon systems for shortcuts. They don't chase intensity to feel alive. They trust process over perception. This is why stability looks unimpressive early. It doesn't have sharp edges. It doesn't create dramatic stories. It doesn't make good headlines. But it compounds, quietly, relentlessly. Days stack, habits reinforce, decisions simplify, until one day, what looked ordinary becomes immovable. That's when people finally notice. They call it confidence. They call it calm. They call it presence. But it was never confidence. It was stability showing its weight. Stability doesn't speak when challenged. It responds when necessary. It doesn't argue identity, it demonstrates capacity. This is why stable people rarely explain themselves. Explanation is for uncertainty. Stability already decided. And because it decided quietly, it doesn't need agreement to continue. Stability is not exciting, but it is dependable. It doesn't rise quickly, but it doesn't fall suddenly either. And once it's built, it carries you through moments confidence never could. Because when everything gets quiet, no audience, no reassurance, no applause, stability remains. If this message resonates with you, like and subscribe for more content like this. This channel is built for people who are done waiting. The shift doesn't happen loudly. There is no announcement, no declaration, no moment where you suddenly feel stable. It happens quietly. In decisions no one sees, in routines no one praises, in restraint when reaction would feel easier. Most people wait for confidence to arrive before they commit, stable people commit, and that confidence arrive later. This is where the separation happens, not in talent, not in intelligence, not in ambition, but in patience. The unstable chase certainty before acting. The stable act while uncertainty exists. They don't need to feel ready. They need to be consistent. This is why stability feels uncomfortable at first. There is no external reinforcement, no applause loop, no quick feedback. You are alone with your choices, and that's the point. Stability is built when you stop asking how something looks and start asking whether it holds. Does it hold on bad days? Does it hold when motivation disappears? Does it hold when no one is watching? If it does, it stays. If it doesn't, it's removed. This is not confidence. This is self-trust under construction. Over time, something changes. You stop explaining yourself. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop performing direction. Because direction no longer needs defending. It's already lived. That's when people start to misread you. They think you're calm because things are easy. They think you're quiet because you lack ambition. They think you're reserved because you're unsure. They're wrong. You're quiet because you're anchored. Stability removes urgency, not the urgency to act, the urgency to prove. You still move, you still build, you still push, but you don't leak energy doing it. This is why stable people last. They don't spike, they don't burn out, they don't collapse when attention fades. They don't need confidence every day, they need alignment. Alignment between thought and action, between intention and habit, between who they say they are and what they do in silence. Confidence will always be loud. It needs witnesses. Stability will always be quiet. It needs discipline. And in the long run, the quiet thing outlives the loud one. If this resonated, don't share it to be seen. Apply it where no one is watching. And if you're building quietly, stay here. More clarity is coming.
Comfort doesn't arrive violently.
It doesn't kick the door in. It doesn't announce itself as danger. That's why it works. Comfort feels earned, reasonable, responsible. After effort, it feels like relief. After stress, it feels like balance. After struggle, it feels like maturity. And that's the deception. Comfort doesn't feel like quitting. It feels like choosing peace. Most people don't fall into comfort. They settle into it. Gradually, logically, without resistance. They stop pushing, not because they're incapable, but because pushing feels unnecessary. Comfort tells a convincing story. You've done enough. You deserve rest. There's no urgency. And for a while, that story feels true. Nothing breaks immediately. Nothing collapses. Life continues. That's why comfort is quiet. It doesn't create obvious damage. It creates delay. Delay in effort. Delay in growth. Delay in becoming who you were moving toward. Comfort replaces challenge with routine. Not bad routines, familiar ones. You keep functioning, you keep performing, you keep surviving. But you stop sharpening. Comfort convinces you that maintenance is enough, that holding position is progress, that avoiding discomfort is wisdom. And because nothing is visibly wrong, nothing feels urgent. This is how ambition dulls quietly, not through failure, through satisfaction. You don't feel lost. You feel stable. And stability, unchecked, becomes stagnation. Comfort doesn't destroy goals. It postpones them indefinitely. It teaches you to live just below your edge. That's the addiction, not pleasure, relief. Relief from effort, relief from uncertainty, relief from confronting what more might demand. And once relief becomes the priority, growth becomes optional. Comfort doesn't ask you to stop. It asks you to slow down, then to pause, then to stay. And most people never notice when staying becomes permanent.
Comfort doesn't become addictive all at once.
It builds through repetition. One choice that feels reasonable, one decision that avoids friction, one moment where ease feels smarter than effort. Nothing dramatic happens. That's the problem. Comfort rewards you immediately, not with pleasure, with relief. Relief from strain, relief from uncertainty, relief from having to confront resistance. And relief is powerful, more powerful than pleasure. Because pleasure asks for excess, relief asks for avoidance. Avoidance feels responsible. It feels mature. It sounds like self-care. Why push today? Why add pressure? Why make this harder than it needs to be? These questions don't sound dangerous. They sound intelligent. That's how the addiction forms, not through indulgence, through justification. Each time you choose comfort, the nervous system learns something. It learns that discomfort is optional, that friction is unnecessary, that challenge can be postponed. Postponement becomes preference. Preference becomes habit. Habit becomes expectation. And expectations quietly reshape identity. You start to expect ease. You expect clarity without struggle, progress without resistance, results without tension. When those expectations aren't met, you don't rise to the challenge. You withdraw from it. This is where comfort turns addictive, not because it feels good, but because discomfort starts to feel wrong. That reversal is critical. Discomfort used to signal growth. Now, it signals threat. You stop asking, "Is this necessary?" and start asking, "Is this comfortable?" That question feels harmless, but it quietly reorders priorities. Growth moves lower, ease moves higher. Soon, you're no longer choosing comfort consciously. You're defaulting to it. You avoid hard conversations. You delay demanding tasks. You reduce exposure to uncertainty. Not because you're weak, but because comfort trained you to. Every time you step away from friction, the tolerance for it decreases. Just like muscle, just like capacity. This is why comfort erodes capability. Not suddenly, gradually. You don't lose strength, you lose tolerance. Tolerance for boredom, tolerance for repetition, tolerance for being bad at something long enough to improve. Without noticing, you begin protecting your current state, your energy, your schedule, your peace. Protection replaces ambition. Maintenance replaces progress. Stability replaces expansion. Comfort convinces you this is wisdom, that you're being efficient, that you're being balanced, that you've outgrown struggle. But what you've really done is lower your exposure to growth. The addiction doesn't announce itself. There's no crash, no breakdown, no clear signal. Just a slow narrowing of range. You still function, you still perform, you still show up. but only in environments that don't demand more than you're used to giving. That's the quiet trap. Comfort doesn't destroy ability, it prevents you from needing it. And anything you don't need eventually disappears. This is why comfort is addictive, not because it feels good, but because it teaches you to avoid what would make you stronger.
If this message resonates with you,
Like and subscribe for more content like this. This channel is built for people who want control over their focus, not constant noise.
Comfort doesn't ruin you overnight.
It wears you down slowly. There is no collapse, no single moment where everything breaks, just a gradual erosion. Comfort doesn't take things from you directly, it removes the need to use them. Skill erodes first, not because you forget how to perform, but because you stop placing yourself in situations that demand precision. You choose tasks you already know, environments you already control, challenges with predictable outcomes. That feels efficient. It isn't. It's avoidance disguised as optimization. Without pressure, skill dulls. Without resistance, ability stagnates. Without demand, capacity shrinks. Not visibly, internally. Then urgency disappears. You stop feeling pulled forward. Deadlines feel flexible. Standards feel negotiable. Intensity feels unnecessary. Comfort trains you to delay, and delay trains you to tolerate mediocrity. The edge you once had doesn't vanish. It softens. You become slower to decide, slower to act, slower to confront. Not because you're incapable, but because comfort rewarded hesitation. Risk tolerance drops next. What once felt challenging now feels excessive. What once felt demanding now feels invasive. You start protecting peace at all costs. Peace becomes fragile. It needs guarding. So, you reduce exposure. Less uncertainty, less friction, less situations that might disrupt equilibrium. This is the dangerous pivot. You stop building resilience and start managing fragility. Fragility doesn't announce itself as weakness. It announces itself as boundaries. I'm protecting my energy. I'm being selective. I'm prioritizing balance. Sometimes those things are true. Often, they're avoidance wearing better language. Comfort encourages you to shrink your world. Not intentionally, strategically. You optimize life to feel manageable. But manageable is not expansive. Expansion requires exposure. Exposure requires discomfort. Discomfort requires tolerance. And tolerance has been eroded. This is why comfort quietly kills momentum. You still move, but only within a smaller range. You stop testing limits. You stop entering unfamiliar rooms. You stop placing yourself where failure is possible. And without failure, growth stalls. The most dangerous part is this: nothing feels wrong. You're functional, you're stable, you're calm. But calm without challenge turns into decay. You begin confusing stillness with mastery. But mastery requires tension. It requires stress. It requires load. It requires demand. Comfort removes demand. And without demand, there's nothing forcing you to stay sharp. This is the erosion phase, where nothing collapses, but everything quietly weakens.
Comfort is hard to leave because it doesn't hurt enough.
There is no sharp pain, no clear breaking point, no moment that demands escape. Discomfort is loud, comfort is quiet, and quiet things are easier to live inside. Most people don't stay in comfort because they love it. They stay because there's no clear reason to leave. Nothing is failing. Bills are paid, schedules work, life feels manageable. Comfort creates just enough stability to remove urgency. Urgency is what forces change. Without it, movement feels optional. This is why comfort is more dangerous than obvious struggle. Struggle demands response. Comfort invites delay. Delay doesn't feel like a decision, it feels like patience. But patience without direction becomes stagnation. Comfort also rewires expectations. You begin expecting life to feel smooth. When friction appears, it feels like something went wrong. So instead of adapting, you retreat. You remove the friction. You lower the standard. You redesign life to stay easy. This is where people get trapped, not by laziness, by logic. They build arguments for staying still. I'm being realistic. I'm protecting my peace. I don't need to prove anything. Sometimes those statements are healthy, but comfort blurs the line between self-respect and self-avoidance. The longer you stay comfortable, the higher the cost of leaving. Because leaving comfort requires discomfort, and discomfort now feels foreign, even threatening. You imagine effort as exhaustion, challenge as chaos, growth as instability. Comfort trains you to fear expansion. This is why people defend their comfort aggressively. They justify it, they rationalize it, they attack anything that threatens it. Not because comfort made them weak, but because it made them unaccustomed to strain. The longer you avoid strain, the heavier it feels when it returns. So people wait for motivation. They wait for inspiration. They wait for the right time. But comfort never provides those signals. It numbs them. Comfort doesn't tell you when it's time to leave. You have to decide. That decision is uncomfortable by design. It requires friction. It requires tension. It requires choosing short-term discomfort over long-term erosion. Most people don't make that choice because nothing forces them to. Comfort makes stagnation feel justified. It makes decay feel like stability. This is why comfort is hard to escape, not because it traps you, but because it convinces you there's no reason to run. Comfort doesn't loosen its grip on its own. You have to interrupt it. Not dramatically, not all at once, but deliberately. Leaving comfort doesn't start with intensity, it starts with honesty. Honesty about where you've been avoiding friction, about where ease replaced effort, about where you chose relief instead of growth. The exit from comfort isn't motivation, it's standards. Standards don't ask how you feel, they ask what you do consistently. Comfort survives when standards are flexible. It weakens when standards are enforced. This is why the solution isn't punishment, or self-hate, or dramatic reinvention. It's voluntary discomfort. Choosing difficulty on purpose. Reintroducing strain into places where comfort removed it. That might look small at first. Waking earlier, staying longer, having the conversation you've been avoiding, returning to something that demands effort again. Comfort will argue against this. It will sound reasonable. You don't need this. You've earned rest. There's no urgency. Those voices aren't evil. They're protective. But protection isn't growth. Growth requires exposure. Exposure requires tolerance. Tolerance requires practice. You don't rebuild tolerance overnight. You rebuild it through repetition, by doing hard things before you feel ready, by choosing effort before comfort gives permission. This is where identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs ideal conditions. You become someone who functions under strain. That shift restores capability, momentum returns, urgency sharpens, the edge comes back. Not because life got harder, but because you stopped avoiding difficulty. Comfort loses power when it's no longer the default, when discomfort becomes familiar again, when effort stops feeling threatening. This is the quiet victory most people never experience. They wait for pain to force change. You don't have to. You can choose strain before stagnation chooses you. If this made you uncomfortable, good. That means you still feel the edge. Like the video. Subscribe if you're done numbing yourself with comfort and ready to rebuild strength deliberately. Comfort will always be available. Discipline won't. Choose accordingly. The beginning is always exciting. Every pursuit starts with energy, with clarity, with the feeling that something important has finally begun. Early progress feels meaningful because it's new. The mind is stimulated, the emotions are involved, attention is easy. This is the phase everyone mistakes for commitment. Motivation shows up first. It feels powerful. It feels convincing. But motivation is not proof of anything. It's a reaction to novelty. The first results arrive quickly. The effort feels light. The future feels close. And that's where the illusion forms. People think this feeling will last. They plan around it. They depend on it. But novelty always expires. Not suddenly, quietly. The work doesn't change. The goal doesn't change. The feeling does. This is the moment no one prepares for. When progress slows just enough to be boring. When effort continues, but excitement leaves. When nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels rewarding. This is where boredom appears. Not dramatic boredom, not obvious resistance. Subtle boredom, the kind that whispers, "This isn't urgent. This can wait. This doesn't feel the same." Most people think boredom means something is wrong, that the goal was incorrect, that the timing is off, that they've lost passion. They misread the signal. Boredom is not a warning. It's a transition. It marks the end of emotional momentum and the beginning of structural commitment. Until this point, emotions were carrying the weight. Interest was doing the work. Momentum was free. Now, the system asks a different question. Not, are you excited, but are you aligned? Boredom removes stimulation. It strips the experience down to repetition, to routine, to process without reward. This is where reality begins. Because reality doesn't entertain. It doesn't inspire daily. It doesn't reassure. It just repeats. The people who make it past this point don't feel better than anyone else. They just stop expecting to. They stop asking the work to make them feel something. This is the misunderstanding that ends most pursuits. People think discipline means pushing harder. But discipline at this stage means staying when nothing is pulling you forward. Boredom tests something deeper than motivation. It tests identity. Who are you when the work feels neutral? Who are you when progress is invisible? Who are you when effort gives nothing back? That's the real question. Because boredom doesn't challenge your ability, it challenges your relationship with consistency. Most people don't quit loudly here. They drift. They miss a day, then another. Then the structure dissolves quietly. They don't fail, they disengage. And later, they say they lost interest. But interest was never the requirement. Interest was always temporary. Boredom was always inevitable. And what comes after boredom is the part almost no one reaches.
This is where most people disappear.
Not at the beginning, not at the first obstacle. They disappear when nothing is wrong. The work is clear. The path still exists. The goal hasn't changed, but the feeling is gone. Boredom doesn't arrive with chaos, it arrives with quiet. Too quiet. There's no urgency pushing you, no excitement pulling you forward, just the same task, again. This is where people start negotiating. I'll skip today. I'll make it up later. It won't matter this once. Nothing breaks immediately. That's why it works. Boredom doesn't demand a decision. It invites delay. And delay feels harmless. You're not quitting. You're not failing. You're just postponing. This is the most dangerous phase because there's no clear consequence, no penalty, no alarm, just a slow erosion of structure. One skipped session becomes two. Two become a pattern. The pattern becomes permission. People don't abandon goals here. They loosen standards. And standards are what hold everything together. Boredom tests your tolerance for sameness, for doing the same thing without emotional reinforcement. It asks whether your commitment was built on feeling or on decision. Most people discover the truth here. They didn't want the process, they wanted the stimulation around it. So when stimulation disappears, so do they. They look for something new, something fresh, something exciting. And the cycle restarts. New goal, new energy, new illusion. This is why so many people are busy but unchanged, active but not progressing. Boredom filters them out every time, not because they're incapable, because they mistake consistency for stagnation. They believe progress should feel alive, but real progress often feels neutral, quiet, uneventful, unrewarding in the moment. That neutrality is where the test sharpens. Can you continue without emotional confirmation? Can you show up without intensity? Can you stay when there's no reason to feel good about it? Most people answer without realizing it. They stop. Not loudly, not decisively, they just fade out. Boredom doesn't chase you away. It waits until you excuse yourself. If this message resonates with you, like and subscribe for more content like this. This channel is built for people who are done waiting.
Boredom is not testing your willpower.
It's testing your identity. When excitement is gone, you're left with a simple question. Who are you without stimulation? Most people don't know, because most identities are built around feeling something, motivation, pressure, urgency. Remove those, and the self becomes unstable. This is why boredom feels uncomfortable, not because the work is hard, but because it's exposing. Without stimulation, you can't hide behind emotion. There's no adrenaline to borrow, no anxiety to push you, no excitement to justify movement. Just repetition. Repetition reveals truth. It shows whether your actions are tied to who you are or to how you feel. People who rely on emotion need variation. They need novelty. They need spikes. But people who rely on identity need alignment. They move because it's what they do, not because it feels good. This is why boredom filters people so precisely. It removes emotional scaffolding. No praise, no urgency, no narrative. Only decision. At this stage, discipline stops feeling heroic. It feels mechanical. You show up, you execute, you leave. No surge, no collapse. Most people interpret this as loss of passion. They say they're burned out. But burnout isn't always overload. Sometimes it's identity mismatch. You are chasing a feeling, not embodying a role. When the feeling left, the reason vanished. People who pass this stage stop negotiating with their emotions. They stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" They ask, "Is this who I am?" That question changes everything, because identity doesn't need motivation. It needs consistency. Consistency turns repetition into inevitability. You don't decide each day, you don't debate, you don't need momentum. You just continue. This is where boredom loses power, not because it disappears, but because it stops being relevant. The work no longer asks for emotion, it only asks for execution. And when execution becomes automatic, progress becomes quiet, invisible at first, unimpressive, but stable, unshakable. Boredom didn't break you, it clarified you.
Boredom doesn't defeat you.
It waits. It waits until motivation leaves, until novelty fades, until no one is watching. That's why it's the final test. Everything before this had assistance. Energy helped, fear helped, excitement helped. Boredom removes all of it. No pressure, no praise, no consequence for stopping, at least not immediately. This is where outcomes are decided quietly, not by talent, not by intelligence, not by effort spikes, by endurance without stimulation. Most people never realize they failed this test. They don't quit in a moment of weakness, they quit in comfort. They say they're taking a break. They say they'll come back to it. They say it wasn't meant to be. But boredom already passed its judgment. Those who remain don't feel stronger, they feel neutral. They don't feel inspired, they don't feel driven, they don't feel special. They just continue. This is where separation happens, when consistency becomes automatic, when showing up requires no argument, when the work no longer negotiates. At this point, progress stops asking permission. It accumulates quietly, day after day, rep after rep, decision after decision. Others look back later and call it discipline. They call it grit. They call it confidence. But it was none of that. It was simply staying when boredom offered an exit. This is why results seem sudden to outsiders. They didn't see the neutral days, the quiet repetitions, the uneventful months. They only see the outcome. But the outcome was decided long before it appeared. Boredom didn't make you stop. You chose whether to listen to it. And that choice is what defines everything that follows. If you're bored right now, good. That means the test has begun. Don't look for motivation. Don't change direction. Stay, repeat, execute without emotion. If you're willing to outlast boredom, stay here. This is where separation happens.